All right, well, let's find out exactly what is going to be taking place in Parliament today, and perhaps more appropriately, Xolani, the expectations from various groupings, whether it be civil society organizations or unions. What are their expectations, or should we say, what are their demands on National Treasury?
Good morning, Oli. Well, as every year we've been saying every year that one budget speech is more important than the previous one. It's the same story this year. The MTBPS is as important, if not the most important one, because government has painted a picture through the National Treasury of how bad the finances are. We are spending more than we are making when it comes to revenue, and we are spending 18 cents for every rand of revenue we make goes to the interest payments. And that's not just the payment of the capital amount that we owe. It's just paying interest. It's something that is quite worrying, and the options that are there are not too many. And as we've heard from various reports, and we've seen the Spear-Wynne State report where the National Treasury was briefing the presidency about the current state and what needs to happen, they are recommending various things, including the fact that government needs to be reconfigured, ministries might be shrunk and merged, and even some government projects actually wiped out completely. And the increase in taxes is on the table because a value-added tax increase of between 1% and 2% is what is actually has been recommended, judging by that particular meeting between National Treasury and the presidency a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, civil rights groups who have issued statements will be here in Parliament to protest what is expected to happen here, calling for those austerity measures not to take place. But one such organization, COSATU, is of the same view about these austerity measures and budget cuts. And I'm joined now by Matthew Parks, who is the parliamentary coordinator for COSATU. A lot riding on today. Matthew, what are COSATU's concerns about what has been said ahead of this midterm budget policy statement?
No, thanks. So, look, I mean, we hope government will be a little bit sober and to adopt common sense when it comes to the medium-term budget statement. It's not a new budget, but it's a chance at the halfway point through the year to look at interventions. And for us, the sober path is to address the many crises we are facing. It's not just an expenditure crisis. It's a stagnant economy. It's an unemployment crisis, a youth unemployment crisis. It's a culture of endemic corruption and criminality. There's a crisis of load shedding, of cable theft, which is crippling Transnet, of collapsing municipalities. So government has to address all of these issues because these are the obstacles to growing the economy. They don't address that. There's no amount of tinkering with the budgets that will ever resolve these issues. So government needs to be a little bit more bold and sober, deal with the fundamental obstacles to growing the economy. So if Eskom can work, all companies can be productive and sell their products, make their money, pay their staff. If Transnet can work, the mining and the manufacturing and the agricultural sectors can get their goods to the markets on time, they can make their money, they can then pay their taxes the state depends upon. But if government is delusional, thinks that pickpocketing a nurse is going to solve society's problems, then it's going to lead us into a cul-de-sac. In 2020, a previous chap who masqueraded as a Minister of Finance pickpocketed public servants, deny them a wage increase. Yet we're in a worse fiscal crisis today, precisely because government didn't deal with the fundamental issues of load shedding, of cable theft, of collapsing SOEs in municipalities. So there's no amount of robbing a teacher which is going to get the trains to run on time. So fix the hard issues, then the economy will take off. Then you'll have the money to pay off the debt, to fund the public services. But taking a lazy shortcut of going to see what can you steal from public servants will not resolve anything. In fact, what it will do is spark a brain drain of skilled public servants like doctors and nurses and teachers, police officers, who will go to less stressful and better paying jobs in the private sector or overseas. And that will make it even more difficult to deliver the public services we need.
In that report, which I'm sure you have seen, the spear report of that meeting between the National Treasury and various ministers, including the presidency, there was also talk of cutting down the public sector wage bill by encouraging those who are above the age of 50 to retire from the government. And we saw that in 2022, in December, there was an odd 25,000 resignations from the government. Do you think it's going to be enough to save the government when it comes to the high public sector wage bill, by ensuring that, by encouraging people to retire so that we don't have to pay so many people in bloated government departments high wages?
Yeah, so it's a myth that the government is bloated. The wage bill, if you take Treasury stats, don't listen to my stats, Treasury stats, has been at 35% of the budget since 2009, 14 years. The crisis is Eskom and Transnet collapsing municipalities. That's what's changed. Wage bill has been stable, it's been very stable. If you encourage people to retire early, well, those who will leave are those with skills that you actually want to retain. That's going to hurt you. Eskom and Transnet did that, and now they're regretting it. They're now trying to bring back those people who they paid VSPs to come back because they need those quality skills. We've got to do the hard issues blocking economic growth. Otherwise, we're going to be in a worse scenario in February and in the following years. We had warned government in 2019, stop looking for lazy shortcuts, deal with the real obstacles to growing the economy. Eskom and Transnet and Prasad, local government, corruption, so forth. But simply thinking that if we pay a nurse less, somehow the economy is going to grow, that's not economics 101. They've got to deal with the hard issues. We think of that spear discussion, Treasury was either had to consume too much wine or they were being provocative, because some of the proposals there just made no sense. They were devoid of logic. You can't say we're going to cut crime intelligence or detective services. No sober person would say that. We also can't agree, and it won't happen, we won't allow it to happen, a 2% VAT hike. That's madness. We think they're just being provocative, and that's fine, that's part of negotiating tactics. The real solution is we want to grow revenue. One is to grow the economy. Secondly is to reduce unemployment. And also in terms of taxes, give SARS the resources it needs to crack down on tax evasion. Because right now, about 64% of taxes owed to the state are paid. So SARS needs to be engaged and say, what support do you need to increase tax compliance, say, from 64 to 70% in the next 2 years? Each additional percent of tax compliance gives you an extra 20 billion rand of taxes owed to the state. So that's a simple thing. We must enforce the laws we have and stop looking for distractions or mirages, because it's not going to resolve the issues. Tito tried it and it hasn't worked well. Now Tito's sitting at his farm playing with chickens. So we need to be focused on the right issues and stop looking for distractions all the time.
Matthew, thank you very much for your time. Well, you heard it there, Oli, about the delusions that COSATU says are going within the government when it comes to what is being touted. But as we've been here since early morning, we've seen a number of ministers and people from the presidency going into the Den Hays building as always before the midterm budget or the February budget. They have meetings there to exchange ideas and to hear from the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, what exactly is going to be presented at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Back to you in studio.
Xolani Mbanjwa, thank you very much. That's our economics editor here at Newzroom Afrika.